The guy is heavily in debt, maxed out a number of credit cards. He's been holding raffles for like jerseys and things to raise some more money. I even said some neighbors help funding him because it's a source of pride that someone from the neighborhood will take the flag and put the neighborhood's name
Wow.
out at World Cup stadiums.
As everyone knows, this is the most expensive World Cup in history. Tickets cost roughly 3 times as much as they did at the last World Cup in Qatar. Tariq Panja of the New York Times recently went to Argentina to talk to fans there about the incredible lengths that they're going to attend this year's tournament. These are Argentine soccer fans who are famously some of the most passionate fans in the world. Tariq, I have been to a Celtic Rangers game, the Old Firm in Glasgow. I've been to Vasco da Gama against Flamenco in the old Maracanã. I've been to Liverpool Man United at Anfield. Got chills when I heard the Liverpool fans singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." But one of the great regrets of my life is that I've never been to a Boca River game, and you just went. And I wonder if you could just talk a little about what is really special or different about that game.
Look, I've been doing an iteration of this job covering sports, covering soccer for now 2 decades, more or less, and have been to some incredible games. It's the privilege of the job. And the idea of going to a Super Classico as the games between River and Boca or Boca and River when it's at La Bombonera has always been something that I've wanted to do and finally had that chance. And the energy that I was feeling to attend something like this, I thought I wouldn't have, given that I work in the industry, get to do this, but there's just something about the vibe, the energy, these spectators, I won't call them that, these fans are alive. They're in the game. So this was a Super Classico at El Monumental, which is River Stadium. It's enormous. That's the other thing. It's cavernous, huge. They said it's been sold out, I think, for more than 100 consecutive games. That's 85,000 plus. And for the night before, the official supporters section of the club was staying up all night, cutting 40 tons of paper into confetti. It was boisterous, it was noisy, it was passionate. And then this rainfall of paper. I've never experienced anything quite like it. And I was wearing my watch and had a heart monitor on. And I was standing still, man. My watch was telling me my heart rate had got to 139. Yeah, I'm quite unfit. But dude, standing still, it was incredible.
Zone minutes. So that passion that you saw at the Boca River game, we've also seen that spill over into support for the national team. Maybe just as a case in point, we can talk about the 2022 World Cup. You were there in Qatar. You saw this contingent, this Argentine army. Talk a little about the look, the sound, the feel of that particular group of fans in 2022.
Yeah, so the Qatar World Cup, as everyone knows, was a controversial one. We don't need to get into that. And there was a sense that it will be very flat. And in some senses, it was. So a lot of European fans, for example, didn't attend games. And then you go to watch Argentina. Some people would say they saved the World Cup's look and feel because they traveled to the games en masse. They arrived in their tens of thousands, as they did in Brazil and in Russia at the 2 previous World Cups. And they create this, I would call it a World Cup sensory experience. You have this songbook, first half, little break at halftime maybe, and then they're off again in the second half. And that is part of the World Cup story, certainly for me, is yes, the great players are on the pitch. Yeah, we're going to have some epic games. But you also have that emotion in the stands, and they bought it there. So did I want to give a mention for that World Cup to say the Morocco fans were also pretty exceptional, Saudi Arabia as well. But what I'll remember is this Argentina contingent, and you feel it not just in the stadiums, but commuting to the game. So on the Qatar metro, for example, blue and white clad fans just singing and bringing that sense of occasion. Funny enough, the only game where they were outnumbered was the one they lost, which was the opening game against Saudi Arabia, where there was more Saudis in the stand. And I was speaking to a professor of sociology who has written a lot about Argentina's link to football and the importance of football in the culture. And he said there is a superstition. You have to have more of your people inside the stadium. And they said one of the reasons they may have lost to Saudi is because we were outnumbered in the stands. And that is that connection between public and players, that unified feeling. And you see when the players celebrate as well. It feels like there is a very direct connection between this team and these fans, which isn't always the case.
There was also this great story of a huge contingent of Argentine fans literally taking over living quarters that had been constructed, I believe, for migrant workers.
Yeah.
Argentine fans essentially just kind of moved into the empty dorms and made it their party zone.
Yeah, they made it their home really for a month. You have this area, the Bawa neighborhood, an area just outside of Doha.
In a neighborhood south of Doha that at first glance looks like any other neighborhood, but it has an unusual backstory.
Because the Argentines, obviously, they get there, but the money is still tight. You know, this isn't a very wealthy fan base. So they have to find ways of affording the World Cup, and they alighted upon this neighborhood.
Barwa was the place where we felt at home during the World Cup. It was our meeting place, our place of celebration, and our place of fun.
So you got thousands of them living in this part of Doha, turning it into a mini Argentina, having these barbecues, having the Argentine music blaring out of the speakers.
The party in Qatar 2022 was made by Argentinian fans. Everything started with them.
They slept through the heartbreak here after Saudi Arabia stunned them in Game 1. Then came Mexico, a must-win. The pressure was real. And when Messi scored, this place only grew louder and prouder.
And they left such an impression on Qatar that they have renamed that neighborhood permanently the Argentine neighborhood.
With its name, its colors, and its stories, this neighborhood stands as a tangible legacy of the World Cup, born in the chaos of the Mundial, still echoing its joy.
Incredible. So after that amazing final, of course, Argentina won 4-3, widely considered the greatest final ever. Perhaps Argentina was propelled to victory by their large contingent of fans, which outnumbered the French. We also saw this incredible passion turn into something really spectacular in the celebrations back home. 5 million Argentinians apparently taking to the streets. Remind us what that scene looked like.
It is a sea of humanity is what you see, and also as the colors are so vivid as well, right? So you've got it's the summer in Argentina when it was the winter in the northern hemisphere, so it's almost a cloudless sky. And there's something, if you've never been to Argentina, a lot of people say it, the Buenos Aires sky is just different. It just feels it's the blue there is epic, you know. So you have this blue sky, you have these fans in the blue and white stripes, and they were heading to this one point where there is this tall column. It's where a lot of celebrations happen, but 5 million people is a lot of humanity. So it's almost like the entire city is walking in that one direction for miles and celebrating for miles, because for Argentinians, winning the World Cup is something that is theirs in a way. You know, this country at the end of the world, it's not known for that much else, and they almost are punching above their weight, right? This would have been a third World Cup, 78, 86, and now this. But also, this is a win that they were craving for themselves, but also for this guy, Lionel Messi, of course, right? So all these factors combine: national identity and a national hero finally sort of quenching his need and their need for this thing. And it has happened on this beautiful summer's day, bringing all of these people out. And I just think that outpouring is something that is going to be so special for people who were not in Qatar, not part of that army that made it there, but for families and generations who have followed this team.
My favorite story from that post-World Cup title celebration was when a group of a few hundred fans showed up at the home in Rosario, famously Messi's hometown, and these fans gathered around the home of a woman who they thought was Messi's grandmother, started singing for, like, quite a long time. Turns out it was not Messi's grandma. Both of his grandmothers had passed away. It was reportedly a 79-year-old woman named Olga, who was very confused.
Well, a great moment for Olga.
But then later told a reporter she was quite pleased with her visitors.
I was going to say, it probably wouldn't have stopped them singing. It would have made them made them go. I mean, this passion, it's almost in the blood, like with football. That was the thing, going back to like the way they support their teams, not just a national team. I in my week I went to 3 games, two involving River, and one for Argentinos Juniors, Maradona's first club, which is a barrio team, a local team. It plays in the first division, but a very local football team. And I think the game is just one part of what supporting the clubs is. It's a day, you know, the people meet so much earlier than you would, say, here in the Premier League. They'll come together, they'll spend time together, maybe have a drink, have a meal, go to the game, sing throughout the games, create this atmosphere. And I think we realize in COVID what not having the public in football stadiums does. It really does take a big part of the experience of why we love watching this sport, or why we follow it, because you just remember that these are participants in definitely in a different way, but they are participants all the same to the beauty of the game. And that was the thing I felt there, is the being together, the post-match commiserations or celebrations. That it's a very important part of the culture, and it will happen twice a week, you know, on a midweek day and then on the weekend, and it's repeated and it's enjoyed or endured, whichever way the results go, and it's part of what being you know, a sports fan, an Argentinian maybe, is in that part of the world. I was saying to someone, I used to live in Brazil as well, and maybe I think people might take this the wrong way, and I would say I've never been in a country that is so kind of suffused with football in all its ways than Argentina. Now, I'm sure you're going to have Brazilians saying, no, you know, we're the country of football. And I would say to a degree, yes, but there's just another pitch, just another note higher, that I felt when I was there, and I have felt watching Argentina and their supporters at tournaments.
All right. Well, you recently went to this soccer mecca, as it were, this land of insanely passionate fans, Argentina. And you went there, Tariq, in large part because of something that we've been hearing and talking about a lot over the past few months, and that is ticket prices. And specifically, this new concept being introduced for the first time at this World Cup called dynamic pricing. So, first, can you just lay out for us what that means and the impact that it's having on ticket prices at this World Cup?
Quite simply put, it's a supply and demand approach to ticket sales for the World Cup, which has never existed before. So FIFA, the governing body, hosts the World Cup, and what it would tend to do is say, these are the fixed prices, doesn't matter who's playing, for, say, the group stage, and they'll be in different categories, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, and it will be depending on where the seats are. So $30, $60, $90, $120. I'm making those numbers up, and it doesn't matter who's playing. Those are the prices in the group stage, and then these prices would increase as the tournament um, moves towards the latter stages, with the final having the most expensive tickets. But even those tickets, they're fixed. But here you have a situation where the ticket prices fluctuate like airline prices do, like hotels do, for example, and they're based on who is interested in going to these games. And there's been a lot of talk about this because not only are these dynamic prices here for the first time, they already are the most expensive World Cup tickets in history. So even before all these prices start moving around, the ticket prices are, broadly 3 times more expensive than they were in Qatar, which is incredible. So we're talking about hundreds of dollars from the off. And I was thinking, how do we humanize this? We're all reading about numbers, and eyes are glazing over, and we know people saying it's a scandal, and they see a number, $1,000, $10,000 for a World Cup final ticket. But what does it mean for people? The people who go to the World Cup. And it just made me think about my experience of the World Cup and the people who go. And I couldn't get past the Argentines that I'd been seeing, whether I was in Brazil, where obviously the neighbor, like there was talk of 100,000, maybe more, just crossing the border to be near games. And then in Russia, I remember tens of thousands of Argentinian fans. And of course, Qatar had the same. So they make an effort. I was thinking, hang on, if these guys are so loyal and they make an effort, are we saying your fealty, your loyalty to your team and this tournament is now going to penalize you based on dynamic pricing because you're you're ramping up demand, and they're competing also with people who want to see the world champions. It just so happens their team is the best in the world, or the defending world champions, and they've got, especially in the American market, which is perhaps not as mature when it comes to soccer, but extremely mature when it comes to mass entertainment or wanting to get a glimpse of a celebrity, willing to pay more. So you've got a Messi effect as well. This could be Lionel Messi's, most certainly his last tournament. So we're seeing their prices spike, $825 for a game in Category 1 against Algeria, one of their group stage opponents, in Kansas, when the same stadium will host a match between other teams in the group, whether it's Austria or Algeria or Jordan. I can't remember right now, but for half that price, which is
And this has never been done before.
never been done before, and you're thinking, wow, what do they think about it? So I went to talk to them. I went to find out. And how are they going to do it? Are they going to go or not go?
Yeah, so paint a picture for us of that scene, Tariq. You met up with a group of people in a park, I believe. Paint a picture for us. What did it look like? How good did the steak look?
Wow. How good did it look? How good did it smell? So this is Buenos Aires is a city with lots of parks, which is it's a fantastic city. I feel I'm working for the tourism ministry here, but it is a wonderful city. So this was Park Sarmiento, and I was there because there's a group of it was about 100, 150 fans who were found themselves in a WhatsApp group when they were going to Qatar or when they were in Qatar and living in that neighborhood, in the Bawa neighborhood. And they came together to try and discuss how can we plan for this really expensive World Cup in the United States. So how do we share lodgings? Who's going where? Can we split the cost of some of this stuff? And what they did, they said, well, obviously we're Argentine. We're going to have a great barbecue in a park on a lovely day to discuss this. So you see these steaks on this row of barbecues in this park on a lovely Sunday. These guys dressed in their football gear and all these big flags, the flags that they take to the World Cup. It was a fantastic scene for me. Look, I'm not Argentinian. I just arrived in the country a day earlier, and I'm like dropped into this thing, and I'm wow, incredible. And having a bite of the choripan that was being prepared. You see why they love this stuff, you know.
Uh,
And all of them had a story, you know. They all have a story. For some, it could be their first World Cup finally. Others, their sixth or their fifth. And one guy who, Benny, he was saying, you know, his mother, when he was a kid, got him hooked on the national team, on the Selección in 1990. And he has been, this would be his sixth World Cup. For the last 2 years, he'd followed Argentina home and away throughout the qualification in South America. That's a long one. You know, it's like 18 games, traveling all around South America. So all these weird and wonderful ways he'd managed to get to these places. But this was the World Cup he said he's going to take his wife and son to. And you couldn't pick a worse one when it comes to ticket prices. So he booked all the travel, 39 days in the United States of America, which they hope will culminate in another final. And to be saving up for it pretty much since the last one, but that's not enough. The guy is heavily in debt, maxed out a number of credit cards. He's been holding raffles for like jerseys and things to raise some more money. I even said some neighbors are help funding him because it's a source of pride that someone from the neighborhood will take the flag and put the neighborhood's name
wow.
out at World Cup stadiums. And his wife, she couldn't get a vacation, so she's quit her job. I think she's a school teacher, and you think these guys are different, aren't they? You know? And maybe some of the economics, I was thinking Argentinians have lived with a very up and down economy all their lives for a lot of these people who are in their 30s and 40s, you know, where the economy is just basket case, really. And you think, I don't know, let's think about tomorrow when tomorrow comes. But the World Cup is happening today. And
Right.
we've got this one thing that we're really proud of. He said, like, this guy, one of the things he said to me, he goes, look, our country's quite divided, or very divided is what he said. And there's one thing we agree on is the national team. And it does bring us together, and it is a source of great pride. And whatever the cost, we're going to go. And that makes you pained for them, given that the governing body, the FIFA, this organization that ostensibly is designed to protect football and to grow the game, who is it for? Because you think, is it for these guys? If you look at these prices, you think, well, the governing body doesn't think it is for you, or is going to make you potentially imperil your financial future to do this. And people say, well, you know, a lot of people in the United States who aren't maybe connected to the game so much say, well, they're just they're just being, reckless, or they shouldn't come. If you can't afford it, don't go. And that kind of misses a beat maybe on what this game means in a lot of places. It's a social good, it's a social construct. It's not just something that you pay for, like a concert or something like that. It has a bigger meaning. And to be honest, I also think that's what's been monetized. So when FIFA or leagues or Champions Leagues or whatever, when they're going to sponsors or when they're going to TV companies that give them these millions, sometimes billions of dollars, when they're making their pitch, what they're not showing an empty stadium. They're
They're not
showing
showing hospitality suites.
no, they're not showing hospitality suites. They're showing, people crying, people cheering, the songs, the people like embracing each other, keeping each other upright. Actually, I mean, thinking about Argentinian fans, you kind of need to lean on each other to make sure you're not going to go down here, and it is this one of this woman who's going to her first World Cup, Soledad Aldo. She said like she had to go. She's not been before, but felt that FIFA is making, to quote her, a business from their passion.
They are speculating and they are playing with our passion.
And which is potentially what this is, right?
You also talked to a guy named Alejandro, a casino worker who planned out a trip to America that I believe involved multiple days of travel. Tell us about him and his travel itinerary.
So this was a guy my colleague Emma Bubala, who is based in Buenos Aires, talked to. She was with me in the reporting, and he was like, we have to make ends meet, and getting to the World Cup is a very expensive destination because of people's income. So just to go back one step, the average Argentinian salary is $1,200 a month. 2 World Cup tickets cost $1,400. So the maths is the maths, right? They have to find a way of getting to this place and somehow staying there. So this guy, he said, a direct flight is $700. We're going to do it in a way that is going to save us money. And he found a circuitous route taking 5 days, I think, which requires him flying, I think, to, among other places, Aruba, right? I think Panama was in there somewhere. And then another city in the United States, and then eventually Kansas. And he's going to be, I think, not smelling the greatest and very tired when he eventually gets there, but he'll get there. And he also told us that
Crashing in the airports along the way, I'm assuming.
absolutely, yeah, this is not like gonna have a vacation in Aruba at one of these resorts.
Right.
But he also told us like they took a trip to Colombia for a game, and they got a room that he said was for one person, and they managed to get 10 of them. And the quote from him, I think, was like, "We all slept upright that night." so, so there you go.
Incredible. Did you talk to any fans who decided they're not going to go? Like the financial burden of this World Cup was just too much and they couldn't justify going this time around?
Yeah, we spoke to a guy called Rodrigo Diaz, a young guy. I think this would have been his third World Cup. I think he was definitely in Qatar. I think he might have been in Russia as well. And I think from him, it was not only that it was more of a financial stretch. It was more he was unwilling to allow FIFA to exploit, in his view, fans like this. He didn't want to participate in this. He didn't want this to become a norm. So it's almost like a protest against this. And he said, as a result of that, he probably wasn't going to go.
Going back to what you said a minute ago, I think really this comes down to a question of what kind of event does FIFA want to put on, and who is this tournament really for? Is it intended for the most passionate fans who are the people that make the tournament what it is, that create that atmosphere that allows FIFA to capitalize on this tournament the way that they do? Or
Yeah.
is it for whoever is willing to fork out the most money? And do you think FIFA, and I guess I'm asking you to speculate a little bit here, but do you think FIFA is aware of the potential impact on the atmosphere of this tournament and World Cups going forward if ticket prices continue to stay so high? Because it is a very different vibe in the stadium when you've got a lot of really passionate fans there to support their team, as opposed to financially well-off neutrals, or just much smaller contingents of fans from the countries that are playing. It changes the feel in the stadium. It changes the vibe completely. And I guess my question is FIFA aware of that? And if so, do they care?
Yeah, it's an important question. And it's what brings these wealthy people to the game, probably, is the site. And I'd love to be in the stadium when this happens. The being there. The risk here is the being there is just going to be people like them taking pictures of each other in a quiet stadium, right? Or video and all of this. Their memories will be not what they expected. There's the risk. Now, if you ask FIFA, they'll say, "Look, we're a not-for-profit governing body. We generate this money from the World Cup, from broadcast sponsorship and ticket sales, and that gets plowed back into the game to grow soccer around the world." Now, FIFA almost got too much money. It has all of this money to give around the world to these football associations, and the structure of FIFA is such that every association gets the same amount of money, whatever their need. A lot of these FAs don't need it. Do you think the US soccer federations needs FIFA's money, or the English, or the German, or the Argentine, or the Brazilian? These are very rich organizations. So then you get into the politics of FIFA, and every 4 years the president is elected. He makes a promise: "I will give you more money every year," and he gets re-elected. I say he because we've never had a female president. Now, the logic is clear. More money I bring you, you vote for me, and there you go. Do they think it's going to impact the atmosphere at the World Cup? I've talked to some people, and that some of them really are frustrated by this. Are they frustrated enough to come out publicly and say this? I have not seen that yet. That's something that's also very...
These are people within FIFA that you've talked to?
People within FIFA. I've talked to people within national associations. That speaks to the power down control of whoever the FIFA president is, because people do not want to put their neck out despite their opinions on these things. Because look, the FIFA president has a lot of power. The FIFA has a lot of power to hand out tournaments. Could be a Women's World Cup, could be a Youth World Cup, could be future World Cups. It could be committee seats at FIFA, which bring a lot of money to these individuals privately. So football still is this very, very opaque world where you don't have a lot of public dissent. I know people who are frustrated by this, who are worried about this, but will they change course? We're not really seeing that. We have seen them react to some of the controversy by introducing in December this tickets for national associations. But talking to fans in Argentina, one guy, this Jose Serio I mentioned, he's a big River fan and part of the contingent that is behind the goal there with the most vocal supporters, and he basically said, look, if a lot of rich people are the only audience inside the stadium for a football, World Cup or any otherwise, you just will kill the atmosphere, because these aren't people who are traditionally going to sing. Now, there is a balance to strike here. People who haven't been before absolutely should be coming to football. Kids who've never been before absolutely should be coming to the stadium. But it should be accessible to as many people as possible. Look, whatever the price is, some people won't be able to afford it, and that's a fact. But if you could make it affordable and accessible to more people, it would mean the game is in a healthy state for the future. A lot of kids, their memories are born being taken by their parents, mom or dad or grandpa, grandma, to a World Cup or a game. And that is what stokes the fire, what stokes the passion. There is a risk that we're going to lose a generation of supporters.
I see that here in America in particular. I mean, I went to the 1994 World Cup. I was young. I went to 2 games with my parents in the Pontiac Silverdome. I
Oh,
watched
wow.
Eric Winalda score a free kick against Switzerland. It's imprinted in my brain.
Yeah.
I went to Brazil, Sweden. I got to see Brazil play live as a young kid growing up in America, right there in my home state. I actually went to the USA Colombia game, and I saw one of the most historic victories in the history of US soccer, a 2-1 victory that allowed the US to advance. I went to the Brazil-Sweden semifinal in the Rose Bowl with 100,000 people, and that experience for me as a young American growing up as a soccer player, it just ignited something in me. It's forever imprinted in my mind. It made me feel closer to the game. It made me feel connected to the game, like the game was within reach. And now I talk to friends of mine who have kids that are playing soccer, that have big dreams, and almost none of them are buying tickets and taking their kids to games this time around because it's just so expensive and they just can't justify spending literally thousands of dollars. And it just makes me sad that, as you said, there's this whole generation of kids growing up that won't have access to these games the same way that I did.
Yeah.
I think my parents and I paid $40 per
Yeah.
ticket back in 1994 for pretty good seats.
It's just exactly, and I could feel the passion of you remembering that when you're talking. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about all the goals of those games. I can see them myself, watching from London, watching that World Cup, and seeing those big packed US stadiums. Romario's header against Sweden comes to mind there. The Escobar own goal. These are memories, and you were obviously, I can sense that passion. It is a real shame. You think for a family of 4, imagine like a mum, dad, 2 kids. If you're thinking here, we'll give you the example. It's here, Argentina versus Jordan, or no, versus Algeria in Kansas. That is $3,200. Now, even for people with good incomes, that just feels, are we really going to do this for a game? That shouldn't be, it shouldn't be that hard.
All right. Tariq Panja of the New York Times, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to be with you again, man.